And when we finally get on the phone with them, they tell us what the problem is. This was the solution. Press enter.
No.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Dunlap from Perkins County Health Services in Grant, Nebraska, and you're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro. Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of Security First IT and HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle from Carden. Good morning, Donna.
Hello, David. How are you today?
I am very spastic at the moment.
I can't remember the last time I heard the word spastic. I wasn't expecting that out anywhere.
It's just bouncing off the walls. It's, everything is demanding my attention at the same time.
Yeah. ADD kicks in at that point. Serious.
Yeah. So it's like, you driving down the road, the squirrel that runs out in front of you, you never can tell which way to go. That's what I'm doing right now. It's like I'm turning to the left, turning to the right. No matter which way I turn, there's still stuff coming. What do I do? No, I'm just going to get run over by my task list today.
Yeah, I can see the little squirrel with a briefcase, backpack, something out there in the middle of the road. I always envision that. I always think the little papers fly. He's on his way to work.
I'm always like, I actually had one of my kids ask me that one time. I was like, why do they just run out and then keep changing sides? What? And I'm like, because every time they turn, they still see the thing coming, so they don't know which way to go.
They don't know which way the thing's going. They're trying to fake out the thing.
They're like, I turn to the left, it's there. I turn to the right, it's there. It sucks when your eyes are on the side, not in the front.
All right, we've already gone off the rails. We haven't even started yet. All right.
So today we'll be talking about the first SRA of 2020.
What?
Yeah, the one that wasn't done.
The first, you mean the first settlement?
No, the first SRA that wasn't done of 2020 that we know of.
Okay.
But yeah, so we do have an enforcement, and there's a settlement
based.
It's
going to be a long recording.
I'm squirreling, man. I'm squirreling. So the first enforcement of 2020 is done, and it come out, and part of that was because the SRA was not done. So now that we know, officially there was not an SRA done for this person, and it was announced. Lots of stuff about this one that's going to be fun to break down because, the first and foremost thing that we saw was it's a one doctor practice. Mm-hmm. So for all you folks that are too small for HIPAA, bullocks
on that.
Yep. It's not a thing. And we've always said it's not a thing. Now we have proof it's not a thing.
That's it.
But as we always do, one of our PSAs, public service announcements, is to go through these things and find the mistakes, find out what OCR is looking for and not looking for, and bring that to you on a silver platter.
That's right. Learn.
Learn. Yeah. So before we do that, let's get into our traditional announcements. And then we'll got a couple of reviews that came in, so we'll see what other people had to say.
It's going to be a long day, folks. So this comes out right before the boot camp. So if you aren't rushing to Atlanta, bring it. It will be the coronavirus version.
Yeah, we will be corona free. And we will have some free corona as well. Who knows?
Corona and Lyme disease. You're crazy. But, if you want to get in, just run right now. Give us a call. Go to the website, whatever you got to do. Mm-hmm. Or you could just show up. Yep. So, March 25th, 26th, 27th. Now that I get those 24th, 25th, 26th. See, I'm already off because.
Don't blame it on me.
Here's why. Because I was looking at the September dates and just saw 5, 6, 7. Oh, geez. So, March in Tucker, Georgia, and September 15th, 16th, 17th in Los Angeles, California. Assuming that we get our minimum people signed up by August 1st.
Yes. So there is a caveat to that one.
Right. Because we're not going to haul it out there for like 2 or 3 people. Although we would love those 2 or 3 people and be happy to visit with them.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, we could do it for 2 or 3. It would just, the price would go up per ticket.
Yeah.
Tremendously.
We don't want to do that. So, but we do limit it, so like the most we will allow is 15. So you got to get in there at the right time. Get it while the getting's good.
Yes.
So go to thehippabootcamp.com. Wow, you were on target there.
I'm scrolling.
I know. So see you soon. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
And, we will do our jobs to torture you with HIPAA.
Yeah. In which we do have people coming from closer to the West Coast to the East Coast one, which we said would happen.
Yeah. Well, I've got East Coast people going, maybe we need to go to Los Angeles. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
So maybe we should have it where people aren't instead of having it near where they are.
That's a thought.
I vote for Hawaii next year.
Well, we still, have the idea of doing a cruise, but not during the coronavirus madness. No.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of the places I don't want to get quarantined.
No. In a tiny little room. No. So for those of you who are, watching what's going on like everybody else, thanks for listening to Help Me with HIPAA instead of the latest update on the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we got to get it done though.
Yep. All right. And thanks for those people that are donors because we appreciate your support. It makes a difference.
Every time we see one of those things come through, we kind of cheer a little bit and thank you.
Yep. So if you're interested in being a donor, because we are a listener-supported podcast, you can go to helpmewithhippa.com and click on the donate button or something there that talks about donations. And do that. And all right, so we got a couple of people who left some reviews recently.
We'd like to thank them for that.
Absolutely. So first one is Doug 67. Bet you that's when he was born. Now we know your password.
Jeez, here he goes.
So Doug 67 says best HIPAA podcast ever. Enough said.
That's perfect.
And that's
I love it.
That's how he wrote it. It's 4 sentences long.
So if you don't want to spend a lot of time, Doug has got it down. You can just copy paste Doug. We agree with Doug or something like that. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So
because we need those reviews. Those reviews are important in podcast land. Yeah,
they are. So that's a good reminder for me to remind our listeners, go out and leave reviews. It absolutely is something that, we don't just, get giddy when we see them, but it does help other people find the podcast. It does rank it up higher in the ratings, which again, helps people find it. And also everybody has to look at those stars, right? Because you're not going to listen to a podcast unless you see it's got 5 stars.
That's right.
So because everybody has to determine where am I going to invest my time. So it has to be worth it. Which brings us to, is it Andrea or Andrea?
Or
Andrea. I never know. Andrea. Yeah. We'll call her
Andrea.
Andrea. Today she'll be Andrea. Because Andrea Troublefield, and you have to roll the R, Troublefield. So Andrea. She says, Donna and David make HIPAA fun. Really? Sorry, I know that was loud in everybody's ears, but that's what she wrote it. Exclamation point. So she writes, I've been listening for almost 3 years. Oh, what?
That's awesome.
That's like super fan.
Now everybody's going to argue who the super fan is. Thanks, David.
3 years, though. I mean, you haven't been listening for that long. Anyway, she continues, I use this podcast to stay up to date and turn my brain on while driving to work at 6 a.m. Listening to D&D allowed me to learn a lot and fast. And it's not painful like reading the law can be. And I'm a licensed attorney, so I've read a lot of law. I listened to them and other HIPAA podcasts when I started my privacy and security position. And this is the only HIPAA podcast that I still listen to. It's a high quality produced show and so informative. There you go.
So there's your shout out to Bo Boyan that you hear from once a year. We give him the credit for making us sound good because clearly we don't have a clue.
Yes, we just banter. He does the rest.
Yeah, he makes it happen.
All right, so this is the part where he actually has to do some work and put in our ads. So we'll be right back after the break. The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Carden, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Carden today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at cardenhq.com. Aren't your patients worth it?
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100.
All right, we're back. Thanks, Bo, for that. You do an awesome job. And thanks again for the reviews. Again, you can go and leave the reviews at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else that you see.
Wherever you listen.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's dive into this because we love peeling the onion because it makes us cry. So let's talk about the first OCR enforcement and settlement of 2020 and what happened here.
What had happened was...
Yeah, there's some things here to make you go, dude, really?
Really?
You had a chance. It's like I gave you the chance to walk away.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about this already. We expect to see more action this year, mostly because we know there are a lot of older cases like this one that are close to resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, you know, that they've had opportunity to have activity, but these things do drag on forever. But I would expect, because we're just now getting to the point where a lot more of the data breaches came into play and, you know, so on and so forth. Plus, you know, you got that thing we just talked about with the letter from Congress, and they might have something to prove.
Well, this one's also interesting in the fact that just when you think that we're, you know, getting up to 2018 and 2019 type stuff, this one drops back to 2013.
It's where it all started, but it lasted for a long time.
It's like, you know, we've said this before, and some people think that OCR is going out there and just trying to find people and charge them a lot of money and do all this. And that's really not what they're out there trying to do. They're really trying to affect change. They're trying to actually help people get these things done. And then, you know, what we'll find out today is the fines and the enforcement comes after they've done all that they can possibly do to get somebody to do something right. And it just still isn't working.
They just throw up their hands.
They're just like, okay, fine.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is important to note that OCR closes thousands of cases and takes in thousands of cases every year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, big numbers of cases are coming through there constantly, and every year they get more. So when you look at 2019, we had over 500 data breaches of over 500. That's a lot. When you consider the year before, we had 300 and something, and they were expecting 350 in 2019, and they had over 500. And every one of those adds to the investigations that goes with the complaints. And also, if they see you in the news, And I just sat in on the National HIPAA Summit, which we'll do a summary on it soon, but I didn't have time. It finished yesterday. But there were several times they were making the point, a complaint is filed, there's a data breach, or we see you in the news. Any of those could be the case. And in fact, of the resolutions that happened last year, or all the enforcement actions that happened last year, only a couple of those had to do with a data breach.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what this one had to do with.
Sort of.
Well, it's how it started.
Yeah, this is one of those, we can't make this stuff up, folks.
That's right. So this settlement is with the practice of Stephen A. Porter, MD, of Ogden, Utah.
All righty.
Yeah. And it's important to note, he's a sole practitioner, gastroenterologist.
Mm-hmm.
One of those ones you have to concentrate on. So, single doctor, not a big group, single doctor. So here's our proof. They do not ignore you if you're small.
Right.
The practice on the website, it says they see about 3,000 patients a year and that they've treated over 30,000 patients in total.
That's 10 years.
Yeah, no, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, and I don't know when that count was updated last. So anyways, so basically there's 30,000 patients on file. It's not gigantic, but it's certainly not tiny, and it's a single doctor.
Mm-hmm.
In the press release, we got our customary quote from Director Severino, and as always, not mincing words, basically saying, don't think you're too big or too small to protect your patients.
Yeah. I think he's starting to take these and put them on a board, and he just grabs, oh, let's take this sentence here and let's put it with this sentence here. All right, here's my quote. Because they're starting to sound the same, which to his point, I think he's hammering home the same message every single time. He is consistent with what he says.
Well, the phrase, take your HIPAA obligation seriously, or remember HIPAA's the law, generally one or both of those are going to be in there.
Yeah, every single one.
So here you go, David. Hit it.
All right. So Raj says, all healthcare providers, large and small, need to take their HIPAA obligations seriously. The failure to implement basic HIPAA requirements, such as an accurate and thorough risk analysis and risk management plan, continues to be an unacceptable and disturbing trend within the healthcare industry. So,
Bam.
I don't know about you, but I was disturbed.
So let's hear how this came about. Goes back to 2013, which, David's right, a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been dragging on now.
Which
6
is
years.
only, it was like just over a month, I think, after the omnibus rule.
Yeah, it was right around the time. Well, the omnibus rule became officially effective January 2013.
Mm-hmm.
With all of the guidance. The high-tech law went into effect in 2009, but parts of it, they weren't enforcing until 2013. So yeah, this is right when we had been waiting and waiting and waiting for, all of this to happen. It finally does. So the office reports a breach to OCR. And that's what made them come in, because they had to report all of their patients, 500 or more, because a business associate was blocking their access to the PHI that the business associate had control over.
Oh.
Yeah. So according to the breach notice to OCR, Elevation 43, which is that Dr. Porter's EHR company, who's obviously a business associate, they reported to OCR that the Elevation 43 was impermissibly using the practice's patient's EPHI by blocking the practice's access until Porter paid $50,000.
Well,
know,
first of all, not a breach. Second of all, I do recall some guidance that came out about something like this?
Well, it is a breach when you lose control of PHI.
Okay.
And it's there's a couple of different reasons. And so in 2016, there was guidance. And as you and I always say, when there's some guidance that comes out, there's some stuff happening.
Oh, yeah.
When it's this specific, we know that stuff's happening. But it's years later that we may learn what was happening at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one, in 2016, they released guidance at that time that's now on the FAQ on HHS website. May a business associate of a HIPAA-covered entity block or terminate access by the covered entity to the protected health information maintained by the business associate for or on behalf of the covered entity.
Phew.
I know, right? Love that legal stuff, right, Andrea? But the net of it is that, they made it clear that you're only allowed to use PHI for TPO.
Mm-hmm.
And, then in case somebody tried to argue that getting my bill paid and fighting over money could be falling under O of TPO, they point out that withholding access is violating the availability requirement of the security law. Security rule, not law. But, so if you try to call it O, they say, well, oh my goodness, you're wrong. Yuck. Because availability is part of that, CIA thing that we talk about all the time.
Yeah. And this stuff is still happening. I got a phone call maybe 2 months ago. It's the exact same thing. The doctor hasn't been paying his bill or whatever, or they having some kind of dispute. And the EHR company was like, okay, cool. We're going to lock your service up until we settle this. I was like, oh, okay. So not my client. It was somebody else's client. And so I said, yeah, they probably need to file a complaint on that. Can't do it.
Yeah, well, that was before this came out. Now they need to.
Yep, it was. Now they can reference this.
Because when they did file it, OCR pretty much cleared that up, and then that's when we ended up with the guidance. But then OCR's like, you still had a breach of over 500.
Yeah.
So, hey, how you doing? How about you show me yours? We're here. We're already here. Why don't you just go ahead and show me your SRA? Risk analysis, basic thing.
What, a risk analysis?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But
you got one. I'm sure you do.
But they locked my EHR up. What's this got to do with the risk analysis? The guy had to be like, dude, what? I called you. I filed a complaint. What do you mean?
I know, right? But they filed a breach notice, not a complaint.
Yeah.
So it is a breach because they lost control and they couldn't treat patients. That's a breach. They didn't file a complaint, but they could have filed a complaint, which then they would have been told you should be filing a breach. So they did. What happened is, they kind of, either they said, we don't have one. Oh, we're just a single doctor. We didn't think that we needed to do that.
It doesn't apply to us.
Yeah. Or here, this is the checklist we completed out of the templates we bought in 2003. Or that were made in 2003, and somebody gave them to us. I always love that one. I don't know where they came from.
Yeah. Can you imagine, though, assuming that they came to him in 2013, I don't know when they came to him, but, people even now in 2020 are like, what do you mean HIPAA changed? If they came to him in 2013, like literally right after HIPAA changed, he's probably like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
there's no such thing as HIPAA enforcement.
Yeah, well, you counted on that part. But like we said, OCR, they really want compliance. And I'm sure back then they were just trying to educate.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it might be why it took so long too, because
Yeah.
it was kind of, during that transition period, and they might have said, okay, we'll give them more time. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, honestly, a lot of times they seem to be, very understanding when you start digging into some of these things. They're not cracking the whip like they could.
Well, it's like at the HIPAA summit, and Serena Mosley Day is over the privacy security part of HIPAA now.
Mm-hmm.
And she was originally down in the Southeastern office here in Atlanta, and now she's in D.C. along with Tim Noonan. But, she's the one that always names all the cases, and she didn't give us a name for that one. But she was reviewing everything. And in the press release, it specifically says, despite significant technical assistance throughout the investigation, that they had failed to complete an accurate and thorough risk analysis after the breach. So they're not even giving them a hard time for not doing it before. They said, look, just do it now.
Yeah.
And I've never heard them use the term, I don't recall anyway, having them use the term significant technical assistance.
Right.
And according to the way that she was saying things, and she's somewhat animated and kind of leaves, she's the one that's like, you must notify without unreasonable delay.
Yeah, and it says it over and over again.
Yeah. So she gets her point across without saying much, but they kept giving them time. Obviously you need to get educated. So we're going to show you again. And then they would submit something that still was not an acceptable SRA. So who knows what they were submitting? Apparently, either they were trying to ignore them and hope they went away, or I don't know. But the bottom line is, finally OCR threw up their hands and said, look, we ain't playing no more. Get this done. I think at least after trying 3 times to get them to resolve the issue, and giving them plenty of time, they're like, okay, we're coming in, because clearly you have not done this properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so their thing said that they had never conducted a risk analysis at the time of the breach report and had failed to complete one after the breach. So, they gave them a chance. And they failed to implement security measures sufficient to reduce risk and vulnerabilities to a reasonable and appropriate level. Now, this is the thing that people forget. If I don't do the risk analysis, then I just start doing security, random stuff, checking some boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure that I am reducing the risk and vulnerabilities to a reasonable, appropriate level, because I have not defined the risk and vulnerabilities that need to be addressed.
Yep. You're just taking a Z-Pack.
Just hit it all. And so this is the, because they always say this is your violations, very specific ones. And they said the first one is failed to implement policies and procedures. So they didn't have policies and procedures to prevent, detect, contain, and correct security violations.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have any policies and procedures. Specifically, they failed to conduct an accurate and thorough risk analysis of potential risk and vulnerabilities to the CIA of all of its EPHI. Okay, we've heard that stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, further, which I thought was interesting, they failed to implement security measures sufficient to reduce risk and vulnerabilities to a reasonable appropriate level. So they had done the thing we always talk about. They'd check the boxes, did a gap analysis. Do you have some policies and procedures? Yeah, we got a book over there. Do you have to do passwords? Yeah, we do passwords. And that was it, is what it sounds like. Hopefully they at least did that, because it could have been more. And then number 2 is that they permitted the EHR company to create, receive, maintain, or transmit EPHI on the practice's behalf at least since 2013 without obtaining satisfactory assurances that the EHR company will appropriately safeguard the EPA job. Now, as we always say, you have to listen to what it says. Now, they didn't say business associate agreement. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was odd because normally they'll say business associate agreement.
Right.
And in this one, they use the phrase obtaining satisfactory assurances. So does that mean there was an attempt at a BAA, but, it wasn't that good, or they're not following the rules close enough? I don't know. But I have questions about using that phrase instead of business associate agreement.
Yeah.
And it could just be the person that wrote it. When they think business associate agreement, they think that phrase.
Where's your due diligence?
Yeah, because to me, we say that due diligence is important. To ask questions and make sure it's not just paperwork. But I've never seen that phrase instead of business associate. I've seen it in conjunction with. But I found that interesting.
Maybe it's because of what was going on, because they locked them out of the EHR. They're saying that you didn't obtain satisfactory assurances that this company wouldn't lock the EHR should you not pay or whatever was going on.
Yeah, well, we didn't have that guidance until 2016. So I don't know.
Yeah, true. I don't.
And those were the ones. So essentially it's like 3. You didn't do a risk analysis, and then that meant you didn't have an adequate risk management plan, because even if you do risk management without a risk analysis, it's inadequate. Or if what you call your risk analysis is really a gap analysis, you don't really have a risk management plan. So anyways, those were the things. And they didn't say, for, years and years this has been going on. They gave them a break for that. But the settlement was for $100,000 plus a 2-year cap. So that max could have been massive. But still, we've seen $45,000 for small groups. We've seen $60,000 and $80,000. So $100,000 for a single doctor, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
What was going on? Because I can assure you that when they do these dollar amounts, they do the dollar amount they think it takes to get your attention. Well, we guess we know what finally got Porter's attention. So because, you add that this went on for 7 years. So every now and then they would have to deal with it, and there's attorney fees and resources, and maybe they weren't doing anything. They were trying to ignore it and throw some paperwork at it. But, the 2-year cap is a pretty big kind of deal if you think about what we've, reviewed many, many times in the big picture. The 2-year cap, you don't play. What that means is we're monitoring you for your entire HIPAA program. And for 2 years.
They give you the deadlines, you've got to have this turned in 30 days. Then you got to do this in 60 days. And it's
if, by the way, you don't meet your obligations, we throw the settlement out and go to civil money penalty. So you can't blow this off.
No.
Because that $100,000 is going to turn into $1 million.
And even, think about it. If OCR has been messing with this for 7 years, now they got 2 more years I got to mess with it. $100,000 is a deal.
Yeah.
Because they've got more than that spent in dealing with this thing. Really.
Yeah. So, of course the cap says you got to do a risk analysis, and, you got 30 days to do the risk analysis or whatever. I don't remember what it was. Then we're going to review it, get it back to you with any changes. Then you have a turnaround time to do it right. Well, they've already been asking them for it, and they haven't been doing it right. So you got to wonder what they're going to do now, and I hope that this is not going to be the first case where we see somebody not complete their settlement. But they've got to do that. And then once they get their risk analysis approved, then they have to create their risk management plan. And once they get that approved, then they have to make sure they implement all that. They do proper training. It's, your standard, here's how you have a program that's correct. So it's clearly should be telling people a few things. Don't ignore us. Don't think you're too small. Don't try to do the bare minimum and pretend that it's the real thing. What else?
Pay attention.
Huh?
So I was looking it up. So they got 90 days.
Yeah.
To turn in the risk analysis, and then once they hear back from HHS, specifying the requested changes, they've got 60 days to have those done.
See, but those are changes. And the people that tell me, I would like for us to do the risk analysis and risk assessment, I would like for that to be done in 2 weeks. Note, OCR gives them 90 days.
Yeah. We can do it in 2 weeks. It costs you $1 million.
Yeah. Well, no, here's your deadlines. Can you meet your deadlines? Then I'll tell you if I can meet mine. Usually I don't have to worry about mine because they can't meet theirs.
You're not going to do it all for me?
Yeah, those that do it all for you, that's not what we do. So I was looking at this, and you and I, and our experience in dealing with practices and doctors and lawyers, just people, and we've heard so many things. I felt like we could take this information and create our own novella. That would be funny. We'll create a script and everything. But based on the things that we know, not what we know about this case, but the elements of this case blended in with other things that we have had people say directly to us, I kind of figured here's a scenario that could happen. And I think it's important for people to grasp, if you're part of a scenario like that, what could happen, what this should be telling you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So. No, it's we're going to do Community Playhouse.
I know, right? It's a fictitious story. We do not know this to be what happened. We are saying we could imagine this happening.
Yeah. The names have been changed to protect the guilty.
That's right. Okay, so the scenario, let's just say that we could see this small practice, they get into one of those contest of wills, also known as a contest between the owner of the small practice and the owner of the business associate, right? Mm-hmm. And both sides are they hate each other, or they've crossed a boundary where there's no going back, and they're arguing. So one side says, you owe me, let's say $50,000. And the other side says, no, I don't owe you $50,000. I owe you $20,000. And they argue over it. And it gets so bad, and they're pushing all these boundaries, trying to make the other pay, that the BA finally pushes too far, and they cut off the access to the PHI. Mm-hmm. So this creates a situation where the practice has got to explain to their patients, I can't treat you because I can't get to your records.
We've had a somewhat of a not really ransomware attack.
You're right.
It's just no ransom.
Well, it's a $50,000 ransom.
Yeah, there you go.
You pay us and you can get your data back. So true. It's a ransomware attack.
How about that?
We know who's holding it for ransom. and been in negotiations with them before the ransom started. That's a great way to put it. It's a ransomware attack. It's a ransom attack, not ransomware.
Yeah.
But they cut them off, and now I am failing to be able to run the business and treat the patients, which falls under confidentiality, integrity, and availability of my PHI. And because I'm having to tell the patients, it's not something you can sweep under the rug and keep fighting amongst yourselves with no one knowing.
Yeah, they kept saying our computers are just having issues. We can't.
I know.
He's
It
probably
would be
going.
hard to say, It's
Yeah.
like, how do you deal with it?
He's like, I just knew I shouldn't have moved to the cloud. It's evil.
Well, I can tell you from even back in the day when I used to work on those IBM mid-range, and we were able to have that rule. HIPAA didn't exist then. And we had that rule that, we wouldn't provide support for you. You could do whatever you wanted, but we're not going to provide support unless once you owe us 6 months in arrears, you're going to have to get close to ready, close to current if we're going to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we didn't keep you from using it. We just wouldn't provide support.
Right.
And we get this call from this group that we had been trying to get to return our calls for almost a year because they hadn't paid. But they never returned our calls. They didn't respond to letters. And we let them know like 4 months before, if you call us, we're not going to help you till you resolve this issue. Because nothing. And then they finally had a problem and they call us and we get it resolved. And because they had been the way they were, it was like the money had to be in our bank before we would talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole time we have no idea what the problem is. And when we finally get on the phone with them, they tell us what the problem is. This was the solution. Press enter.
No.
Because I was in charge. I was VP of operations. I handled it myself. Stood right there and listened to the problem. And I'm like, seriously?
Did you press enter?
Sport rep went, press enter.
Wow.
And then it fixed everything because that's the way those mainframes work. So, I mean, the fact that that's all on-prem doesn't mean you can't block them from getting to it. There's a lot of ways that you can do things with software these days. So anyway, I digress. Let's just say that up to this point, neither side had really worried that much about HIPAA. Like most people in these kinds of scenarios, that small companies that we talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Could we envision that? Can we imagine that to be the case?
It happens too frequently, I would say.
I know.
I hear this all the time. I'll just shut my doors and retire if they come after me. I'll just, change the name of the price. All this junk. It's just, ugh.
It is an unacceptable and disturbing trend.
It is very unacceptable and disturbing.
Yeah. And, just like your friend Raj said, it's an unacceptable and disturbing trend. The thing is, it's been going on for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just starting to turn over those cow patties.
And they still fresh and stanky.
So we can envision that both sides have not done their HIPAA stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when the breach notification is done and reported to OCR, and they come and they solve the fight between them because, they're able to bring down the HIPAA hammer that says, I don't care how you resolve this, you can't do that. Right. You can't keep me from having access to the records.
Initially the doctor was like, see there, nanner.
The doctor would have been. We didn't imagine that. Yeah. We weren't there. We didn't see what happened in this case. But yeah, we could both see them being like, hey, HIPAA works for me. I don't hate it so much anymore. And then OCR turns around and says, now everybody show me their SRAs.
Yeah, because I imagine the software company probably got looked at too. We don't know anything about that part yet.
Yeah.
But
they may have immediately done an SRA and said, let me put a bow on it and a thank you card for allowing us to do this SRA for you.
Yeah.
They probably responded quickly because, technical people actually, in a lot of cases, they can put something together quickly. And back in 2013, making the effort was enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then our fictitious doctor, they say, you give us the SRA. And the doctor says, here's a checklist. Here's a spreadsheet.
Somebody Google that and find out.
Somebody Google what risk analysis is, a HIPAA risk analysis. Get us one.
Oh, wait a minute. You can run this scan and print. There we go.
There you
We'll
go.
just do that.
Yeah, just scan the network, print out our problems, send it in.
Yeah.
That is not a list of threats and vulnerabilities and likelihood and all this other kind of stuff.
Or even better yet, in 2013, call a local tech company and ask for security risk analysis.
I know, and even then they may not have done it. So, but, I mean, back then we looked at things differently than we do today. The rules were still kind of getting settled, and you could have done a lot less than what you should do, and it would have still been okay. Today, you don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're talking a substantial amount of time has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And data breaches were not rampant back then.
Yeah.
The data breach reports back then were nothing compared to today. So, any rate, they looked around. Didn't somebody get us a HIPAA manual? I always love that. Do you remember where we keep that? And it's, a big 3-ring binder. If you're lucky, it's a big one. Sometimes it's the smallest 3-ring binder they make.
Yeah.
And that's our HIPAA manual.
Yeah. Find some organization we belong to. I know they have to have one we can buy.
But, the policies, the procedures, all of that kind of stuff. And again, now they didn't look at the whole program. This wasn't an audit. They looked at security.
Mm-hmm.
They were dealing specifically with security because that's where the failure was. And they somebody said, it's getting serious up in here.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent them something, and OCR says, yeah, no. We're going to need you to do some more than this. And they gave them additional technical assistance and said, this is what we want you to do. And they kind of messed around with it, got extensions on their deadline, finally sent them something. Still, all they did was go get a different IT company to run a report or download a different checklist from the internet. But at any rate, you can't use we don't need no stinking SRA.
Yeah, I'd been the guy that was like, find me an SRA that's got the most number of pages.
And that could be what happened because people are like you. But at any rate, our fictitious practitioner may have done what David said. But if you can't prove that you've been doing these all along and they exist in your business, don't lie to them. Don't be lying. Don't try to make stuff up because they hate that as much as ignoring them, if not more. No, I think they hate being ignored, number one. Then number two, they hate being lied to.
So Donna, you wouldn't post date anything?
No. God, those calls.
Can you do the SRA for us for 2014, 15, 16, 17? In 2020?
Yeah. So, but the bottom line is, no matter how you look at it, whether it played out the way that we imagined it or it played out a different way, the bottom line here is that it's frustrating for us and sad for their patients that if they had just been making an effort to comply, we wouldn't even be hearing about this.
Mm-hmm.
Just an effort. And, if they had made, okay, let's say they didn't do it beforehand, but they made an immediate effort afterwards. Because it sounds like they were giving them, originally they were like, okay, you didn't do the SRA after the breach. And we've heard them talk about that. We tell you there's data breach and then you do nothing. You tell us we're wrong. And then even after we tell you we're investigating you, you don't start getting your stuff together and your ducks in a row. I'm just saying that's the sad and frustrating part. It's one of those ones where, we can't do anything but walk away. You and I both know that. When you hear, I refuse, the government's not going to tell me what to do, HIPAA, schmippa, That's going to get rid of. I'm not going to do it. I don't have the money. I don't have the time, you know. So basically what they're saying is, I will not invest the resources required to protect my patients.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you're saying.
Don't care.
Well, you know, they don't look at it that way. It's about them.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, it's the government forcing them to do something. They don't see it as necessary. Then, you know, they all they see it is a compliance program. It's not a compliance program. It's not.
It was voluntary, and no one did it.
It's not about compliance.
It's about
patient care.
You got it right this time.
Sometimes it's not about patient care. It's about compliance. And that's the wrong attitude to have.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's sad and frustrating, and I really feel bad for the patients that have no idea how many of their providers are doing this. And the number of times that I'll have providers tell me, yeah, we got it covered. We don't need any help. And I'm like, I'm looking around here. I can tell you already like 5 things that are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's not really wrong. And there's more to that than you know. And we've got better paperwork. And I'm like, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's hope that people will stop saying we're too small. Or we're so big we can't do all of that. We can't manage all that.
Yeah. There's complaints on either side.
Mm-hmm.
Size doesn't matter, guys.
No. We'll just leave it at that, won't we, David?
We'll just leave that pregnant pause. All right. So that is our show for today, folks. So remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media site. And if you live near Atlanta, you can follow Donna around physically. It doesn't matter. She likes it.
Oh,
rate us on your podcasting app that you listen to, or Apple Podcast. You know, help us spread the word. Get them stars up there. So remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.